Hey everyone, my name is Seth. This is the Books Business Growth Podcast where we talk to Amazon sellers, e-commerce entrepreneurs and business owners about their journey, what makes them tick and why they have been successful. So without further ado, please sit back and enjoy the show. Welcome viewers and listeners to the podcast. We're here with Lloyd and I'm wanting to chat a little bit about your journey, where you've come from, where you want to go, a little bit about iGen. So I was just wondering if you could, introduce yourself and how you got started with Amazon. We'll go from there.
Cool. Thanks, Seth, for having me on. So yeah, my name's Lloyd Jones. I'm based in Northern Ireland in County Durham. I've been selling on Amazon since 2017 to kind of varying degrees of success. I originally got started on Amazon after setting up a cleaning business with someone that I used to work with, and me and him and I going separate ways. So yeah, I set that company up, kind of 2015, 2016, did that for about a year, and kind of one of the reasons why we went our separate ways. I always wanted to do something online. He wanted to do something traditional. So I think we flipped a coin, or we flipped a beer mat or something like that. And he won, and he wanted to do like a traditional kind of cleaning business. So ran that, priced jobs in the evening after work, at weekends. So yeah, I always wanted to kind of do something online. So came across Amazon, tried to launch a private label in Germany, which didn't happen. Spent 6 months doing research. Did keyword research in German, and I did Spanish at school. So yeah, it was a bit of a waste of time, but yeah, led me to Arbitrage. So I think I found some Arbitrage videos on YouTube and kind of got stuck in from there.
Nice. Well, it sounds like an interesting story already. So if we go back to the cleaning business, so you obviously did that with a business partner. What did you say you had a full-time job as well as doing the cleaning business?
Yeah, I was working for a marketing company, and I'd been there for 4 years at that stage. He'd just started. He needed some help when there was no help available, so I helped him, and we kind of got friendly that way. And then, yeah, we were working full time, so it was 5 days a week, one late night, and kind of a 2 o'clock finish on a Friday. So pretty much every night of the week, we went and priced jobs, set up a website, had like a managed phone service to like deal with things, and yeah, it was good. There was no issue getting work, like getting like cleaning work and contracts. The main difficulty that we had was staff, finding good people to actually turn up on time, do a good job, and yeah, it was good fun.
Age-old problem.
Fun. Yeah, you just can't get the staff.
Right. So why was there any particular reason to cleaning? You saw a gap in the market. There wasn't that much supply. There's plenty of demand, or?
Well, the kind of backstory behind it, Stuart and I, working full-time this marketing job, doing quite well, but we wanted to set something up that kind of ran without us, didn't have our input, but also just to start a business. So he had previously ran a coffee shop, I believe. I've done other things like buying and selling DVDs on eBay, and tried a little bit of web design as well. So we always wanted to start a company. I wanted to go kind of new media online. Stuart was a little bit older than I was, so he wanted something more traditional, something kind of hands-on and dealing with people. So I can't remember how we decided, but there was a lot of Guinness drunk after work in those days. So it was probably something like flipping a beer mat, or I don't know, some sort of bet or something like that. And yeah, we decided to start a cleaning business. Yeah, it was good fun. We ended up. Now we didn't have any employees. We kind of had five subcontractors who kind of all worked Thursday, Friday, Saturday because everyone wanted the house cleaned for the weekend. So it was, yeah, a challenge getting kind of work towards the start of the week to kind of fill up like a full-time week for someone. That was another kind of challenge. And yeah, that's why. That's kind of, there was no reason why I was cleaning. It was kind of his choice. And yeah, I helped with pretty much everything, the marketing, the pricing jobs, interviewing as well. Interviewing was good fun. And yeah, we did that for about a year. And then, yeah, we just kind of went our separate ways. He's still running the business, he's doing quite well. And yeah, that's kind of it.
All right, that's interesting. So yeah, so he's still doing it. But was there a particular catalyst towards starting a business? Did you both hate your jobs, or you just wanted to make more money on the side? Was it supposed to just be a side hustle? Did you have a vision that you were going to build it for 5-10 years and then sell it on? Or was it just drunken spontaneity, as you say, Guinness chat?
Yeah, I just need to tick the box for like all of the above. So yeah, like the marketing job that we had was very well paid, but with that good pay, it was pretty stressful as well. So yeah, we wanted that, and we wanted to build a legacy and actually create something for us rather than, I suppose, an employer. So that was one of the main catalysts. And in terms of exit, we didn't really have an exit. Stuart had a vision that would be cleaning, property services, security, that type of thing. And I wanted to go the other way. I wanted to go kind of, yeah, internet-based type business.
Yeah, fair enough. So if we do go on to the obvious, trying to think of the word, segue onto Amazon. So you picked Arbitrage. You mentioned just now that you tried private label in Germany, but without any prior knowledge of German language or presumably the German retail market or the online retail market. Was there a particular reason that you wanted to do A, private label, and B, private label in Germany, which I assume is going to be a lot harder?
Really, it was not the first thing that I came across, but I think it was on a webinar, and yeah, a couple of guys were explaining their private label businesses. It just seems so appealing. Amazon do all the work. Just need to find one or two products, import them, which was super easy at the time, and then send them into Amazon and wait for the sales to come in. So yeah, I signed up to a course, and the kind of niche of that course was they looked at the two marketplaces. So they had the UK and Germany. And I think still now, Germany is a massive opportunity. It's the second biggest marketplace after the States. And yeah, that's basically, they looked at the UK market and said it's not as saturated in Germany. So we'll talk you through the process and how to launch that in Germany. But if anyone's ever looked at private label or even arbitrage, there is quite a really kind of steep learning curve with Amazon. There's so much, you need to know, and there's a lot that you actually don't know. And yeah, it was a really steep learning curve. Had to do all this research in like German, and just never really got any momentum with it.
Right, fair enough. I mean, I can't imagine it'd be super easy. Would you be able to divulge some of the products you were looking at, or would that be too much of an ask?
9. That's the only German I know. Honestly, I mean, I can tell you what there were. From memory, there was like secateurs, like garden secateurs. There was barbecue covers. What else was there? It was generally in the kind of gardening niche that I looked at. Germany loved their gardening, the barbecues, their beer drinking, all that type of stuff. And yeah, I kind of just identified that as, right, let's go in there. Got down to like secateurs. But I mean, that was like 7-8 years ago. So yeah, you probably need to do, I'm not sure how good a lead that is. You probably need to do your your research on that.
Did you get to the point where you were going to ship stuff from China? Did you do that, or did you just give up because you weren't sure? Oh, okay.
I just kind of, it took me so long. So like, if you can imagine, I was working in Belfast, like marketing job, sales job that was quite high pressure, having to come home for dinner, whatever, maybe go to the gym and then do a couple of hours and trying to do everything in German, just load everything down. And I just kind of thought, had enough of this, just going to kind of look at something else. Kind of forgot about Amazon for 2 or 3 months, and then I was on YouTube and figured out that you could actually sell other people's already branded products on Amazon, and I was like, really? Just assumed it was Amazon. So got into that, and yeah, just used Tesco clearance aisles, sold some books, and yeah, that's kind of how I've grown it.
Nice. So that was the light bulb moment. We'll obviously go into that very soon, but I just still would like to touch on the German thing, just because it does interest me. Like you saying that it's the second biggest marketplace. I didn't actually know that, because obviously they've got a much bigger population than the UK, and I assume probably bigger than Canada as well, because Canada's quite sparsely populated. So, but not many of them are online, right? That's what I remember when I was researching Amazon like 4 years ago. I remember thinking that, well, reading that the German marketplace, only say 5 or 10% of overall retail sales are online or something, compared to a much more mature market in the US and UK, even though it's still in its infancy as we think. So I assume that was going into your thought process of the private label. And do you think you were too early? And if you did it now, it would be a great opportunity?
I think in hindsight, yeah. I mean, I agree with all of that, that the German marketplace still is kind of open. I think in hindsight, what I would have done is just do it in English. But the course was like kind of all geared towards the German marketplace. And it was, really I should have just taken some imperfect action, actually invested in a couple of £100 for an import, sent it into the UK and just seen what happens. So with that, actually, I don't remember that stat, like 5%. If that's the stat.
I don't know exactly what it is, but I just remember reading that it was much lower than UK and US, and that it was, very low. And I also, just a little aside, is that I just remember when I was on the UK market and I was doing arbitrage into, sending video games and books into the UK Amazon warehouses. And for listeners that don't know, if you sell on the UK, you are able to sell your products from an Amazon warehouse to Spain, Italy, France, Germany, and there's more countries now, I think, aren't there? But
Poland, Sweden, Netherlands, yeah.
Yeah, so there's an absolute ton, massive opportunity. And I remember I was buying, if any gamers out there listening, I was buying Metal Gear Solid games second hand for, say, £10-15 on eBay. And I was selling them for 60-70 euros really quickly on the German market. And I think that's just an example of how young and in its infancy the German market was, because they just couldn't get their hands on these Metal Gear Solid games in shops, so they were having to go online and buy them from me. And I just remember thinking that was one of those moments where I was like, this business is going to work for me, because I'm making a huge margin on, capitalizing on the lack of supply in Germany.
Yeah. There's one of our clients is from Germany. We have a few German clients, and called Sebastian. And one of the big things that appealed with iGen was just like, even obviously Amazon UK is much more like developed, but even just the communities, there's no like Facebook community in Germany for Amazon sellers. And I think that's partly because a lot of people speak English, but there's not really a dedicated one for Germany. But in the UK, there's nearly everyone has a Facebook group now. So yeah, even that kind of thing is kind of still quite open. So that was very interesting.
So is that something that maybe would interest you guys, to do an iGen Entrepreneur German version? You could get someone like Sebastian or one of your clients to do all the translations, and then as you say, you'd be the only one doing that. Massive gap in the market.
Yeah, that's on the list. Yeah,
nice, like it. So on that same topic of not many Facebook groups, are there also barely any German speaking courses? I guess the only caveat to that is that a lot of German people can speak English, right? Like a really high percentage. So that gap's not necessarily quite as there, right? But
yeah, and like the other kind of thing that with Sebastian, he has a VA that's based, it's not Poland, I think it's maybe Romania or Latvia, who speaks German and English. So he was really lucky with that. So he has a VA that goes into Germany that can speak German. So I think that's maybe why you can't go in with maybe a team of like Filipino VAs, because their Spanish and English is really good, but not so much on the German side. But there's such a big opportunity.
Nice, yeah, that's really exciting. I think, I guess that's probably the same for Spain and all the other EU marketplaces. So for anyone listening, if they want to get ahead,
I think the way to look at it is that America is obviously like the leader in the world for like online sales, and kind of the next country that's most similar to that is the UK and Australia. They kind of adopted quite a lot of Americana kind of culture, and then it kind of trickles into France and Germany and Spain and things like that. So I think that's where that kind of comes from, because like you say, Germany is, I don't know, I think it's maybe like 100 million in population. UK is like 65, 70, something like that. So it is nearly half the size again. So it is a big opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Australia. I kind of just avoid thinking about Australia because they don't sell books on there. So that's not of interest to me. Same as Mexico. But I'm not too sure why that is. Yeah. But I've also heard that Australia doesn't have much of a Amazon brand image compared to UK and US. People don't necessarily trust it. Not that they don't trust it, but it's not got the same, strength as it does here.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast, Nick Bradley, Scale Your Business podcast, and he had an ex-Starbucks CEO on, and it's an amazing podcast, just about growing the business and all the rest of it. But he talked about whenever they tried to launch in Australia, and Australia was really tough to crack. They really kind of valued, so Starbucks trying to go into Australia, and Australia is quite multicultural, so if there's like a Filipino community or Japanese or Bulgarian community, they'll have their own type of coffee shop, and they won't go to like another coffee shop. They'll try and keep their kind of, their home countries and stuff together. So that's why they find it difficult. So I don't know if that would translate into Amazon. And there's maybe, is there like a big book selling website on Australia? Like
maybe there is. I'm not actually too sure, but on the topic of coffee, that is super interesting you say that, because I spent a bit of time in Australia, about 9-10 months, and I lived in Sydney and Melbourne, and especially Melbourne, they are massive on their coffee culture. They are absolutely just this, like craft coffee. They're so into it. So I can imagine that they just turn their noses up at Starbucks and think it tastes disgusting.
He mentioned that as well. It's like, it's very kind of niche, and there's quite a bit of snobbery. Well, not snobbery, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's on the level of snobbery in the sense that they'll want to like taste a tiny bit of the coffee, and then they'll say that they notice all the notes of dark fruit and whatever it is. I don't know. I'm not a coffee connoisseur. I just like a good one when I taste it. But alas, I've got diverted there. But back to Arbitrage. So you tried private label. It was a bit daunting to put down a lot of money on a shipment from China, dealing with all the Chinese suppliers and stuff like that. Like is just daunting, isn't it? And I assume it sounds like you had a similar realization to myself, where you saw a YouTube video and found that you can go down your local high street, your local Tesco or Argos or whatever retail store and buy stuff from there and resell it on Amazon. And then you pretty much just went from there, did you? You kind of, you just like took that concept and ran with it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with private label is like, it's still quite an abstract concept because everyone's been to a shop and bought something, or everyone's ordered something from Argos online and have it delivered. So you're familiar with that concept, but very few people have like imported stuff from China. So there's that. And yeah, it really appealed to me that there was like stuff that I could just go and buy that evening, scan a few things, see if it added up, shove it in a box and send it off to Amazon. Just really kind of appealed. And yeah, there's just such a low barrier to entry.
So you started with RA, obviously retail arbitrage. You were walking around the shops and finding deals. Mm-hmm. So at what point did you see online arbitrage an opportunity? How did that go for you?
So I kind of just dabbled with it for about a year. It's quite interesting because me and a friend started at the same time, and we did Q4. So we both started in September, did September and then Q4, and he actually sold a lot more than I did because he started off with a lot more money and put a lot more time into it. And then in January, he like came around with like a bottle of whiskey. He's like, "Thanks, Lloyd. Thanks for introducing me to that." And all the rest. It's like, "Yeah, cool. So what are we going to do this month?" And he's like, "Oh no, I'm done. I'm out. Like, I can't be bothered with this anymore." And it's like, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah, pay for Christmas, pay for this, pay for that." And yeah, I'm just too busy. I've got a kid. And it's quite interesting because he's now working for me doing RA and like prep. So
oh wow,
yeah, it's funny how it's kind of comes full circle, and it's good to kind of provide that to him as well. So yeah, that's just a little aside, but really I came into OA because what I was always kind of struggling with, and what I was one of my kind of limiting beliefs that I've really worked hard to kind of remove is around money and things like that. So I never wanted to take any debt on or anything like that. So I was just taking money that I started with, rolling it over. And I was always able to like spend all the money I had, send stuff in, but then there was like not enough deals. I thought, right, what am I going to do? And what I actually did for 6 weeks, I did match betting. So if you've ever looked at that, it's basically you place two opposing bets and then you extract like the difference in the payoff. It's not quite that, but for argument's sake, it's that. So I did that for 6 weeks and raised, I think it was about $2,000, just doing Saturday for 3 or 4 hours a day, placing these bets. Did that for 6 weeks. I made about $2,000, and I was like, right, I've got this now. And I actually set up a credit card at that stage. So that introduced me to kind of like working from behind a desk and, you know, buying things online, selling them online. So then I came across like different online arbitrage sites and different bits and pieces. And yeah, that's how the online side of things took off.
Nice. It's super interesting how you mentioned match betting, because I feel like a really large proportion of people who get into RA and OA either start with match betting or do it kind of in conjunction or at the same time, because I was obsessed with it for a bit. I was following YouTubers who were making a full-time income doing it because I just thought, wait a second, there's no risk here. All you've got to do is kind of work out how it works and put the hours in as well, right? You had to work really hard to make anything over $2,000 when it was late on, right? If you got into it, say 2012, you could make a ton of dough, like you really could. And then all the bookies start really squeezing you, and that's where I realised, oh, this isn't scalable. But it's interesting how you say, you know, you didn't want to take debt on, you kind of had a limiting belief, so you probably thought, oh, well, this could be a good way. Well, I thought anyway, this is a good way to potentially build a living and get out of my job. But obviously, as soon as you flick that entrepreneurial switch and realise this isn't scalable at all, I just stopped doing it completely. But
yeah, like I wasn't miserable doing it, but I was like, I'm trying to create something so I can get away from a job, and this is just another job And it was like 3 hours on a Saturday because that's when all the horses were on, that's when all the football was on. I was like, I'm kind of giving up my Saturday for this, and I get the payoff in the future and all that type of stuff, but like there must be easier ways to like raise capital or whatever. So yeah, and then that kind of introduced me to like Facebook groups where people were using credit cards, and I was like, okay, that's maybe not such a bad thing. And then it kind of led me into understanding cash flow and yeah, trying to manage that type of risk as well.
Yeah, so I think we're on a really interesting topic here, how you mentioned your attitude towards money and your attitude towards debt. And I think obviously a load of us, maybe some of us listening, or I definitely had before I started Amazon, an employee mindset, and I didn't want to take on debt. So what would your advice be to newbies starting out with debt? Because obviously I don't want to promote bad financial advice to just take out a credit card with terrible amounts of interest. But for example, I took out I think I took out 2 credit cards which were 24-month and 26-month zero interest. So I figured, and I think I had a limit on one of them of £6,000 and one of them £4,000, and I did max those out because I thought that if I spend the £10,000 now, in 24 months, I'm going to be generating enough cash flow to pay that back. I don't know if that's good or bad advice, but what would your viewpoint be on that and advice for newbies?
Yeah, so there's 2 things that I would kind of advise. First thing is you need proof of concept. So first of all, play with your own money. And then and like for me, I've been doing this since 2017. You're never going to be perfect at this, and it does change quite a lot. So what I would say is get to a point where you're confident that you're regularly buying stuff with your own money, sending it in, getting a return, and you've kind of proved that you can find things. You've proved, and you've got that confidence that this is kind of not legit. Well, it is legitimate, but you've proved that concept. So that's the first thing. Don't just start off with a credit card. Max it out within a week, and cross your fingers because it doesn't work like that. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I would advise as well, and just in terms of any business or anything to do with Amazon, is that like at iGen we have a core value called "the room is on fire." So what that talks about is basically, okay, room's on fire. First thing is we don't panic. We look for a fire extinguisher. Okay, got the fire extinguisher. Fire extinguisher. The instructions are in a different language. We don't understand. Okay, we get someone that will understand that language and read it back to us. So what I would say is that, especially with credit cards and finance, apply that kind of terminology, that kind of approach where you understand everything and you understand everything inside out. So that will also give you that confidence. So yeah, you've mentioned 0% credit card. There's generally caveats with that as well. So it's sometimes within a certain amount of time and you need to spend. So be confident that you've done everything in your part to kind of mitigate that risk by proving that concept to yourself, and then also understanding like intimately all the tools and resources that you're using, because you'll generally find it's not just to mitigate your risk, but there might be something else on that credit card that can actually benefit you. So something like Amex will actually give you deals for certain shops. But if you hadn't applied that concept where you've got that, that student mentality, you're really trying to learn everything that you can to try and progress yourself, you're not gonna get as far as someone else that has. So that's kind of my 2 pieces of advice. So prove concept, make sure you're comfortable to a point that you know what you're doing. And then second of all, just make sure that you understand everything. And yeah, if something does go wrong, apply that kind of concept that it's not the end of the world. You can fix things. If it's happened to you, it's happened to a million other people. And yeah, I think Will Smith said his 2 key things are running and reading. So, if you keep running and turn your brain off to tell you to stop, That's massive. And the second thing that really struck a chord with me is like any problem that you've had, there's been a million people had that problem before, and there's been about 1,000 people write a book about it, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. So there's not really any issue that you can't deal with. So that's kind of my advice on that.
No, that's really fantastic advice. Thank you. And yeah, I totally agree with that. I think what I said about the 0% credit cards, I would say I had half a proof of concept. I would say I was buying some good stock and some rubbish stock. So I was taking it to a bit of an extreme, but I think that's the perfect way to do it. Take your, whatever savings you got or whatever you can save up each month and put that into stock. Prove that you know that you're buying good products and that they're making you an ROI and that you're not losing money. And then you can start thinking about 0% credit cards or Amazon loans. So do you still use debt? Do you still leverage debt in your business at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, credit cards, I was taking Amazon loans before. Yeah, all that.
What's your viewpoint on Amazon loans? Because I've never actually taken one. And they've stopped offering them to me now, so I'm not sure if I'm just in their bad books in terms of loans. But
yeah, we haven't had an offer in a while, actually, in about 6 months. But yeah, I mean, they're very, very low cost loans, first of all. So if you understand how you're going to pay things back, how much it's going to cost you, and let's say, for example, someone new. I think there was a few screenshots on Facebook earlier that people have got loan offers, but like only borrow money that you can actually use. So if someone's just starting off that doesn't have like a team or doesn't have like replenishable items or doesn't have any kind of experience, if you take a 40 grand loan offer and you're going to have to start paying that back, then you're not going to be able to spend that money to justify that amount of loan. So, yeah, I would kind of say that with money's kind of not the easiest part after a while. It's kind of, and not that there's, like, after a while, there isn't really a point where you're like, oh, I can't find money from somewhere, because you can get a credit card from somewhere, max it, turn your stock around and pay that off within 56 days. So as long as you can do that, then that concept works. It's when you can't do that, or it's when you can't do that, then you kind of get into trouble.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And while we're on the topic of debt and using your personal savings, I know it's a question that always comes up: is how much money do you need to get started? And I'd just be interested to hear your viewpoint on that.
Well, you can literally get started for free. So, and like you've mentioned, I've sold secondhand items previously. So everyone has, I'm trying to look for a book. There's a Blu-ray that I'm watching at the moment, Das Boot. If you scan that, that'll be worth something on Amazon, and I know it will because I bought it off Amazon. So, yeah, I bought that, whatever it was on Amazon. I mean, you'll have DVDs, Blu-rays, books that you can sell on Amazon. So you can start with that, and yeah, you get that light bulb moment when you've got your first sale. If you want to spend more than that, you can start with a couple of £100 or less. There's no real minimum that you need to start with. Obviously, if you find more items to buy than your budget allows, that's an issue, but that's a good issue. So that's what I would say.
No, so it's a great answer. Thank you. I think, yeah, that's perfect, because I would actually argue to some people that having too much money is a bad thing, because when I did have this £10,000 credit, it was bad because I was worried that I wasn't spending it fast enough, because I wanted to get that money churning, right? I wanted it to compound, and I was ending up buying stuff that wasn't going to sell, and it ended up, a ton of bad buys, and then that put me further in the hole, further in debt. So it's better if you're frugal to begin with, and then as you've said, the proof of concept, then you can start leveraging these instruments.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So obviously you started with RA, you got into OA, you dabbled around for a year or so. So when did it start when did you start feeling like this is something that you'll be able to take full time, that you felt like you were successful? And also allied to that, when did you start hiring, or when did you first hire someone? So it's kind of two questions in one.
So I was in such a good position up until start of 2019. So what I was doing was, it was me doing a little bit of RA, doing a lot of OA, kind of in the spare time in the evenings. And I had a new job at that stage. So I was already working from home. So I was basically working from home, closing one laptop, opening another, doing a little bit of OA, getting sales coming through. And it's great. It's absolutely awesome. Yeah, and what happened then? So that would have been start of 2019. The company that I used to work for was going through a private equity takeover, and they were like, not to get into that too much, but it was like a 5-year transition, I think, and it was like just after the midway point of that transition. So what I and everyone else I worked with noticed was just a complete change in the environment. So this really nice job where I was like working from home and go and have a cup of coffee, go and sit outside for 10 minutes if I was a bit stressed out. It's kind of like, why were you away from your desk for 2 minutes? And it's like, nah, this isn't for me anymore. So the atmosphere really changed. The marketplace changed a little bit as well. It was a lot more competitive. So it was start of 2019, middle of 2019, that I really made a decision. Okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm really going to get capital, start to leverage that, and start to really treat this as a business. So I took a period off alcohol, took 3 or 4 months off alcohol before a holiday to France, August 2019. Started using a prep center that time as well, because I wanted sales to come through when I was away, and I wanted stuff to go to the prep center. And I actually ran into like 2 or 3 things that really basically 3 things happened that kind of time period where I was like, actually, I'm just going to give this up. So the first one was this watch. So I was selling this watch at a wholesaler for watches. I was selling that watch 2 or 3 times a day on Amazon, kind of like 50, 60 quid profit each time. What was happening though was I was noticing more and more people were finding that supplier. And as more people come on, the price came down, and eventually, as I was like flying to France, and I just placed like, I think I'd ordered £6,000 worth of one item and another like 5K's worth of another model. Emporio Armani basically said to Amazon, no more third-party resellers on Amazon. So,
ouch.
Yeah, I like landed in France in a couple of days, like checking the sales. I was like, it seems really low. Why isn't that inventory hit? It should have hit like a week ago and sales stuff. Check my emails, it was like, you need brand authorization from Emporio Armani. And it's like, yeah, I'm not going to get that. So I was actually really lucky. I recalled all of it, and I actually got a refund from the supplier. I basically explained what happened. And he was like, listen, I get that. Let this be a lesson. I'll refund one order, but I'm not going to refund the other. I was like, happy days. So just sold them out on eBay. September, after that, credit card fraud. That was about 4 or 5K as well, which was quite interesting. I'd flown to Birmingham to go to the autumn fair, and I was going to a stag do the weekend after that. Actually flew across a day early to the stag do on my own, so I could do like a day's work on my own. Tried to put like some orders and credit card kept getting declined. I was like, oh, just because I'm in Portugal, whatever, I'll just do it when I get home. When I got home, I had all these like emails and messages and stuff. So I spoke to Luke Filer, spoke to Thomas Parkinson, and yeah, they didn't like speak to me for hours, but spoke to Luke for a while and just kind of messaged Thomas Parkinson back and forth. I think you had him, or you're going to have him on the podcast.
Yeah, he's been on.
Cool. And yeah, just there's a couple of things he said. I was like, you know what, fuck it, just keep going, get your head down. You know, these things happen. Just put it down to experience, move on. And yeah, had a really good Q4. And to kind of get back to your question and to answer it, so hired my first team member January 2020. So from like all that experience during the summer, pretty much cash flow issues twice because of the stock and then the credit cards. Yeah, I was like, actually, right, let's give Q4 a go and decide after that, more or less. And I was like, no, keep going. So hired my first team member January 2020, and you know, six of my team plus me, plus Colin, who drives for me, I suppose, and does RA for me. So call it 7.
Wow, that's awesome. There's so much to touch on there. So the credit card fraud, so you didn't get that money back? You didn't get that money back? No, it's great.
Yeah, I got it back. Okay. So long story short, any purchasing you're doing, do it on a credit card because you get that protection. So all that had happened, what had happened, and what I realize now is that whenever you pay for something online or you use your chip and PIN, those card details get encrypted, go up to the cloud somewhere, and there's a company that lives in the cloud. They encrypt it, then detangle it, and then send it back down to where it needs to be paid. So what had happened was someone had hacked into the cloud company, got my credit card number, got my name, got my company name, and then it got my like, not my date of birth, but my month and year of birth from company's house. So what they then did, which was super sneaky, but also super clever, they called Barclays, who I had my credit card with, pretended to be me, and basically changed the mobile phone number on the credit card. So when they were going to buy stuff, and like some of the stuff they bought was bizarre, but I've worked it out since. Like they were paying for parking tickets, they were paying for car insurance, they were paying for electronics, and they were paying for hotels and stuff on my credit card. So whenever they put through a hotel in Notting Hill, I remember it was one of the hotels, and the text message went out to Lloyd Jones to say, is this you authorizing this? The text message went to them, and they just hit yes.
Oh, so, wow.
Whenever I spoke to Barclays, they were like, well, we were texting you about this, and we were asking you if this was you, and you said it was you, so, like, what's the story? Like, are you trying to... And I was like, what actual mobile phone number do you have? And they read out this, like, mobile phone number. I was like, that's not my number. What email address do you have for me now? It's like, oh, you changed it 2 weeks ago. It's like, no, I didn't. So that's what happened. I ended up getting everything back and some compensation because they kind of dropped the ball on the security side of things. I think it got 500 quid. But yeah, that put me back like about a month or so. But I got my money back within, I think it was a month. And I was told that was actually quite slow. It should be pretty much.
Yeah, it should be quick.
2 weeks. Yeah, so put everything on credit card because you've got that protection.
Yeah, or PayPal, right? You can get everything back on PayPal if you pay on that.
Yeah.
Like within a couple of days, yeah. That makes sense, yeah. Don't use your debit card. Don't do bank transfers. If anything looks a bit shady, it could be. It's crazy what people can do these days, right?
Yeah.
But so did this happen around the same time as the Armani order? So presumably you were pretty down about it. Were you kind of thinking, oh, like this is going to be too much of a setback, this is too frustrating, did you ever have a thought that you didn't want to continue with Amazon due to this, or were you up for soldiering on kind of?
Yeah. So like, so that summer invested quite a lot in like 2 different sets of watches, sent them all in, had to get them sent back. So that was kind of August time, and then the credit card fraud was end of September time. So it was within like 2.5 months that happened. And I was like, kind of need to make a decision here. And I think I'm pretty, in Northern Ireland, if someone's called Thran, they're pretty stubborn. So I'm pretty Thran. So
right.
I don't really like to give up on things. There was that, and then there was also my other job, and I was like, well, it was kind of a release, and I suppose like I've been out of employment now for a couple of years, but I really look forward to kind of just finishing the day and getting stuck into my own business. So it was that kind of, I didn't like have like a massive exit plan or anything, but it was just the enjoyment and the fulfillment that I got from building something for myself, even if there were problems, that kind of kept me going.
That's really cool. And then, so your conversations with Luke and Tom probably spurred you on a bit, because I assume they were encouraging you to just carry on. And
yeah, I mean, I would say both of them didn't say you have to continue on. Both of them just kind of explained that these things happen. If it's not something like that, it will be something else. And I get that. I mean, with the cleaning business and kind of other jobs that I've had, there's always issues, and it's kind of how you deal with them. And both of them were very kind of open, and they were saying, I make this work, and you're going to have problems. It's not having problems, it's how you deal with them. So that was the main thing I took from that. And I just didn't really want to give up. Didn't want to be beaten either.
Yeah. No, I love that.
So,
I definitely had the stubborn attitude. As soon as I saw some money coming in, I thought, if I can iterate this, I should be able to. I have to do this. And then there was no looking back, whatever the issue that I faced. And as you say, it's problem solving, isn't it? It's that those 2 issues you had were obstacles to get over, and you could have given up, and you probably would have gone on to something successful as well, but you wanted to do Amazon because of passion for it, and you were sick of your job, and that makes sense. I'm interested. This question just came to me. What, if any, transferable skills do you think from your marketing job you've been able to carry over into Amazon?
Yeah, so I think just in general, just resilience and kind of really, really. So you've got resilience, you've got work ethic, which are kind of, for me, it's kind of like, kind of need to have that to run any sort of business, because like no one's going to really especially whenever we kind of started, there wasn't really the groups that we have. There's no one really kind of to help you out. So you need that. In terms of the marketing job, it was really focused on, what's the right word? It was really focused on like method, like a standard operating procedure for lots of different things. And you really, really had to know your numbers, like super, super drill down on the numbers. And it was all based on ROI. So the marketing that we offered, you can actually generate an ROI off it. So you can say, okay, people who in your area who do what you do and advertise what you do, generate X amount of views, clicks, links, and calls. So we were able to translate that into an ROI. So you could basically explain that to potential customer, new customer, previous customer, that type of stuff. So really knowing your numbers. And I think as well, just kind of lastly, I don't know if you ever experience this, but the more you kind of dive into something, the more you realize how deep it is, and like how much there is in the background, and how many kind of hidden kind of niches and industries there are. And like the more you kind of get to know something more, the more you realize there is to learn as well. So the more you keep drilling down, the more you'll find to kind of do. So I suppose that's kind of curiosity as well. So yeah, I would have got that from probably the marketing job as well.
Nice, yeah. No, it's interesting you say about that. There's a really good quote that's something like, the ignorant person thinks they know it all, and the wise person realizes that they don't know anything. And that's a similar thing. Like, you can go down a rabbit hole in any niche in Amazon, right? And that's why I've kind of cultivated something with books and built a Facebook group around it, because there's just so much depth to it. And that's the same in anything, any industry, any job, any hobby. There's a reason people get world class or something, because they find something and then they burrow deep into that rabbit hole and probably never make it out.
Yeah, you've got me thinking about that marketing job. Actually, it's quite funny.
Really?
Yeah.
You've not thought about it for a while?
No, not at all. Actually, no. We yeah. So there was like a niche I got into, and it was basically advertising for dog walkers, pet sitters, and all this type of stuff. And yeah, like there was so much traffic, but no one was advertising. And I remember someone called me up and wanted to cancel, and I was like, "Geez, why do you want to cancel?" She's like, "Lloyd, my phone won't stop ringing. Can you please turn the ad off?" And it was like, it's such stupid. Like, I don't know, it was maybe like £2 or £3 a week, and she generated like 1,000 phone calls, something crazy like that.
Wow.
Over like 3 or 4 months. And I was like, "Oh, you're getting like spam phone calls and all this." Just like, no, literally, like the area that she was in, I think it was like somewhere like East Anglia, that's kind of big, but wherever she was, like there was loads of people looking for a service, and she was the only one like advertising. So I got her top of directories, top Google as well, because I used to set that up. And she was just like, "You need to turn this off." And I was like, give the work to someone else. And she's like,
"Yeah, please sell those leads."
Yeah. So it was, yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed that job. It was good fun.
Yeah, you must have learned loads. Did you manage a team when you were doing that job in any particular part?
No, it was purely, I was being managed. Yeah, I was part of the team, and yeah, a lot of it was.
So your first hire was, you were the first, that was the first time you've started to run a team?
Yes, I suppose I did interview people for the cleaning job, so there would have been an element of that. But really, yeah, ultimately, yeah, the first time I hired, a VA, that was, yeah, like a proper hire.
Nice. So what was the decision leading up to that? Because I know I've spoken about this before, but it took me way too long to hire my first VA, and I just did it when I was totally overwhelmed and I was working really long hours. So was that similar situation for you? What was the catalyst to hiring?
The catalyst really was, I was just looking at what I was doing, and I think I'd made a decision before the new year, but it's really, if I can be generating X amount of sales, I've got a certain amount of time, and I was really coming up against it with time. So it's just like, I need to find some more time from somewhere. It's just not possible. So yeah, I invested in someone else's time, and she joined me January 2020. Yeah, and she's still with me. So yeah.
Nice. You never look back. And now, yeah, as you say, you got 6. I remember I listened to a podcast with the Airbnb founders, and one of them's called Joe Gebbia, and I think he said that his attitude to hiring is pretty simple. It's like, as soon as something gets difficult, as soon as your workload gets difficult, as soon as it becomes unmanageable, then you hire. And it seems simple, but that's the way I try to look at it now. If we can't make VA more efficient, or we think they're the most efficient possible, then we need to hire another one. It's as simple as that. I don't know what your viewpoint on hiring additional people is.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things to draw on. I mean, I know Branson and Duncan Valentine, they always talk about just surrounding themselves with the right people and letting them do things. And one of my kind of other things that I looked at starting but didn't really follow through on was ClickFunnels. So I did a one funnel away thing. and the content and the coaching in there is just amazing. But the one thing that stuck out for me was the phrase, let me get it right, who, not how. So if you're wondering how to do something, don't try and do it yourself. You need to kind of step out and think of yourself as like a building contractor as a business owner. So the building contractor won't really lift a shovel or a spade. They'll have a team come in to do that. They'll have plant hiremen to drive the diggers. They'll have brickies to do the brickwork, sparks to do the electrical work, so on and so forth. So if you're coming up against like a brick wall or glass ceiling or whatever, like, don't ask how you're going to do it. Ask who is going to do it. So accountancy, that's all outsourced for us. Prep is all outsourced as well. And yeah, that was a big thing I took from that. Actually, there is a book, Who Not How to Build Out Teams, that I haven't just got around to reading it yet.
Do you know who that's by? I'll put it in the show notes. It's the first time I've ever said that. So on the topic of teams, we spoke a couple of weeks ago on your Facebook group, and you recommended a book called Traction, which I have here for people watching. I went ahead and bought it because I figured it's a good recommendation for you. And the thing I love about this recommendation is that I've never heard of this book before, and it's not, you didn't just recommend it, perfect. You didn't just recommend a book that, dime a dozen, everyone's read, which is fine. We can all read Think and Grow Rich. It's a good book. I like it, but I want the original recommendation. So on the topic of this book, I haven't started it yet. I'm looking forward to reading it. And I know that you praise this in terms of how it's helped you think about building a team and running a team. So I was just wondering if you could give any advice to listeners on someone who's maybe in a position like I am. I'll hold my hands up. I've got 6 people in my team, and I haven't really done much towards building a culture or incentivizing my work as much, and that is a massive thing. I'm going to be putting a load of time in this quarter, and if you could provide any sort of nuggets of wisdom, that would be amazing, because that's going to be scratching my own itch.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So where I got that from, Luke, who I work with, he started reading this, and he's implemented this concept into his businesses. So in a kind of nutshell, it's hard to do it in a nutshell because there's so much in there, but one of the big things that, if you can, I'm just trying to think of the audience. So one of the big kind of takeaways from that is meeting structure. So meeting structure, if you think about, well, certainly meetings that I used to have in previous jobs, generally everyone gathers in the same place at the same time. Some people are late, some people are early, some people are on the phone or whatever. Meetings can start at different times, and at different times cover something completely different. But what that does, just in terms of the meetings, so every Monday morning we have an alignment meeting. And the alignment meeting is a meeting that starts at a certain time and ends at a certain time, generally ends early. So we never go over, and we have pre-agreed kind of agenda to talk about. It's very structured, but it flows very naturally. So we have a check-in, we talk about weekly wins, we talk about rocks against, we talk about quarterly rocks against yearly targets. So what that book will help people do is set a target for the year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, build a culture around that, and then break it down into quarterly rocks. And then those quarterly rocks are broken down into like weekly meetings and things like that. So it sounds super simple. It is straightforward, but I think as Jim Rohn said, the things that are easy to do are also very easy not to do, like eating an apple a day and all that type of stuff. So Gino Rickman, when we put that together, it's just super, super useful for things like meetings and structure and company culture and things like that. So quite a lot in it. I haven't revised it in a while. Yeah, so things like that. Vision, traction, organizer. And I've got like notes and stuff pulling out. But yeah, super, super useful. And like you say, everyone can kind of read Think and Grow Rich, but it's one thing reading something and another thing actually implementing it. So that will actually help
and
you
I also
implement
just
it.
yeah, and I also just think it's cool to read books that no one else is reading, because then you're kind of getting knowledge that maybe gives you an edge, because if everyone can read Think and Go Rich, and it is going to propel your life if you implement it, but it's nice to read something that, is giving you something that no one else is potentially looking at, or only a few thousand people have read. I just like that. I'm the sort of person that when a music artist gets big, I won't like them anymore, just because, I want to be the one that says, I want to be the one that says that, I would listen to them when they were cool, when they only had a few thousand subscribers. I'm not quite that bad, but do you know what I mean? It makes it more like you're interested in a commodity. But so, that's great advice. I'm looking forward to reading that book.
I would say so. The kind of, not the caveat with that book, it's generally designed for people with like businesses with like 4 to kind of 25 staff. So if it's just you might not get that much value out of it. But I actually recommend it to someone who didn't have any staff and who was just about to hire and all the rest of it, Sebastian. And he said it was super effective because he wanted to have like company values, he wanted to have core values that aligned with him. So he made sure he was hiring the right person, because I don't really, it's the great thing about running your own business is like you can run it in the way that you see fit. So, if having fun, it's like we have, one of our core values at my Amazon business is fun. So we try and have as much fun as we can. Whereas if that's not important to you, then you don't need to have that fun. So things like that.
No, I like it. That's really cool. And it's good to know that people who haven't got a team should read it, because it's always good to know or to read about or try and gain knowledge of things that are potentially on your horizon, right? So listeners who are thinking about hiring a VA, why not dip into that, because then you're just going to be more proficient when you do eventually do it. So you've obviously got a team of 6 now. I know you're in wholesale as well. So obviously you were kind of dabbling in wholesale with the Armani stuff. So did you make a conscious decision to scale up your wholesale supplier searches, or did you kind of just fall into it? How did that go with wholesale? Because I know it's a bit daunting for some people. Some people don't like cold calling people. So if you could explain that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I kind of had to. So if you think about, just to get the timeline right. So I hired first team member to do OA January 2020. Went okay for a couple of months, and then COVID happened. So like my replan list, my deal list went out of stock very quickly. So I basically thought, well, I'll have to replace it with wholesale. So in the words of Jordan Belfort, get on the phone and start dialing. Found a supplier locally from something that I was selling OA, I think. Found them through that. Also found another supplier. How did I find them? So I was organizing an engagement party. I went into my golf license and basically said, listen, Seth, I want to buy a whole load of drink, having a party, all the rest of it. Can you order me some in? The girl said, well, I can, but sure, here's the number for the supplier. And by the way, they supply the rest of the shop. So it was like, happy days, I've got a supplier for Amazon. So that's a pretty easy way to find a supplier. So go into your off license, go into your corner shop. Don't be blunt. Don't kind of say, can I have the supplier details for your goods, please? Because they'll look at you with 2 heads, have a bit of crack, speak to them, obviously go in a few times, get into the conversation and just kind of drop that in. And most people were confident. So that's how I started.
Perfect.
That.
Clear, actionable advice there. Find some cheap booze from your local off license. But no, that's really good. So what I'm taking from that is that getting into wholesale is about building relationships, right? You can't just go in there and be obnoxious and say, look, can I buy a load of stuff cheap for you so I can make some profit on Amazon, and I'll just give you the bare minimum. You've gone in there a few times. You've probably on first name terms with them. You're bantering them a little bit, and then they're going to eventually, you kind of wear them down a bit, build a bit of rapport, and then you do eventually get a good deal, right?
Yeah, most people that helps with things. So yeah, but everyone's different. So yeah, you will find, especially that kind of the thing, once you kind of realize that world is there for wholesale, you're like, oh my god, there's like more suppliers that I could ever need. I mean, at the moment we're only really ordering off 5, maybe 6 wholesalers, and that's quite a lot. I mean, most people kind of rely on 2 or 3. I try to build it wide, not tall, because of the experience I have with watches. So yeah, like to get into wholesale, kind of just need to so there's something that you can kind of there's something that you can kind of you'll experience, especially when you start doing something and start to get good at it. So everyone has in their brain, it's called an RAS, reticular activation system. So what it is, it's basically a filter that filters out stuff that you're not concentrating on. So Seth at the moment is wearing AirPods or EarPods, but he didn't realize it until I mentioned him there, probably. And he's probably standing in trainers, but he didn't realize until I shifted his attention to it. So what you'll generally find is that the more you focus on something, the more you'll see of that thing. So your RAS, what it will actually do is it'll filter out a lot of stuff. So if you're just going into a shop and you want to buy a packet of biscuits, you'll look for the biscuits, go to the counter and walk out. But if you're thinking about Amazon, you're thinking about your business constantly, you'll always have that like hunter mentality to kind of, okay, I wonder if I could speak to someone and they might, get into conversation. So yeah, I would just encourage, like, the first couple of times you do it, it's probably a little bit awkward. But yeah, if you just start that conversation, yeah, you can kind of end up anywhere, really.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that about reticular activating system. That's one of the reasons why I don't play video games anymore. I didn't really play them ever that much, but I dabbled during COVID, and I played like a big one of those massive RPG role-playing games. Something like that, but it wasn't. Yeah, either way, you could lose hours of your life into it, and then towards the end of kind of completing it, or getting to whatever point, I watched a YouTube video that said that if you play a video game and you don't see it out to the end, then your brain is constantly trying to solve the puzzles in the video game. So obviously so then I was probably spending a lot of my unconscious brain power on solving the problems in this game, and then my Amazon business probably suffered from that, because at the moment I'm not playing any video games. All I'm doing is focusing on my Amazon business and social media and stuff, and I'm finding I'm way more creative because that is literally my only focus at the moment. Just 2 or 3 things, alongside making sure I'm living healthily and all that stuff. And I don't know how true that YouTube video is, but it really impacted me because I haven't played a video game since over 2 years. Don't really watch much TV either. And I think what you said there, it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, yeah, the things that you focus on expand. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting that with computer games, because I've played a few before, and I think like Football Manager is like the worst one because you can never really complete it. But yeah, I've thought about that when I'm doing other stuff as well. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the same for kind of if you're reading a book, I suppose, or you're watching a TV show that you can't finish. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah, I don't know if your brain can focus on myriad different things at one time and it doesn't actually affect your creativity at all, but it really sparked an interest in me to stop doing anything that's not really focused on what I really want, and those video games were definitely a distraction from what I want, so I just stopped doing them. But yeah, I don't know how truthful it is, but I think it's benefited me in the long run, so that's all that matters. But
the RAS,
going back to wholesale,
Oh, cool.
Sorry, yeah, go on.
Just the
No, I
last
was just
thing
saying.
the last thing that's like super, and I'll not keep you here all day, but
No, it's
super
fine.
important thing with the RAS thing is like if you've ever bought a car or like a new jacket, as soon as you like buy that new car and new jacket, you'll see it everywhere because you're focused on that item, and it's not as if like there's loads more now than there were before. They were always there. You just didn't notice them. So yeah.
Yeah, that always fascinates me. There's a name for it, isn't there? It's like Bader-Meinhof syndrome or something like that. But yeah, it's exactly what you said. You know, you see a car, you notice you want it or whatever, and then you start noticing it everywhere. And it just and not to get too woo-woo, but it just makes you realise that reality is kind of almost bendable to your will in that sense, or you know that there's a lot that we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, like with the crime scenes and crime scene stuff, like 2 or 3 people will see exactly the same event with completely different ways, you know, with different filters and yeah, all that type of stuff. So it's super, super interesting now.
Yeah, it's like that quote: "You don't see reality as it is; you see it as you are." That's always stuck with me whenever I've heard that one. But
yeah, that's great.
But yeah, we might be losing a few people here. So if we get back to some actionable stuff with Wholesale, apologies for anyone who's not up for that. No, but one thing that really interests me about Wholesale is that it sounds like if you find a really good supplier, a really good wholesaler, just one that's got amazing products and you've got a really good relationship, you can build a really profitable business, right? Is that the case? I mean, you're saying you've got 5 or 6 and that's too many.
Yeah, like I would say the difference between RA, especially RA and OA, is the barrier to entry. So it's super, super easy to jump on a website, find something profitable, buy it, and then send it in. With Wholesale, the challenge with it is you're not dealing on a business to customer level anymore, where you're approaching a business as a customer and they'll deal with you quickly and efficiently generally, unless you order thousands of one product. So you'll generally get stuff fairly quickly, fairly easily. But whenever you move into Wholesale, rather than going through a website with maybe 100 products, you might go through a supplier list with like 1,000, 5,000 products, or like 10,000 products. So everything does take longer. It takes longer to actually, like, there's one supplier I have in Ireland, and I know only one other Amazon seller uses them, and it's like one of the biggest Amazon sellers in the UK. What it called? Ozara. So I know that it's me and them using them, and the reason that it's like no one else using them is because for me to actually speak to the person to open that account, I think it was like 15 phone calls, literally 15 phone calls to the receptionist. And I got to the point where she was like, "Oh, hi Lloyd, how's it going? He's not here." And it's like, okay, cool. And then she said, "I'll tell you what though, he's going to be in at 12:30 on Thursday, and he's between meetings. Try him at 12:30. Tried him at 12:30, spoke to him, he's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot you want to speak to me about this, that, and the other." And yeah, that's like my main wholesaler. And no one else uses that wholesaler. So, just trying to think of the best kind of metaphor, but really, it's very easy to find a wholesaler, but the easy to find wholesalers aren't really worth finding because like everyone else is using them as well. So, yeah, it is competitive, and there's wholesalers, there's liquidators you can get in touch with that are selling like liquidate stock, so new stock, less than cost price because the businesses went out of business for whatever reason, and you can get in touch with those people. So there's so much you can do with Wholesale. It does take, but with Wholesale, I would recommend getting into RA and OA and building up cash flow, building up some metrics on your account, and then passing or delegating that work off to your team and then you can get on the phone and open up accounts and things like that. So it is a bit of a life cycle. You will need more money for wholesale than OA or RA. Generally, there are wholesalers that don't have an MOQ, a minimum order quantity, but yeah, they're not really worth dealing with. So yeah, that's kind of it.
No, that's really great. Thank you for that. So interesting on the wholesaler you've got, there's only 2 Amazon sellers, right? So when you did finally get him on the phone, was he impressed that in your persistence, or was he still a bit standoffish, like, I don't want to deal with you, who are you, why should I sell to you, kind of thing?
Very standoffish, like really, really standoffish. And the way that I got a hold of him, because like they don't have a website, they don't have the phone number on Google, so the way I got a hold of him was through another supplier that was buying off him. And the first thing he said, well, how do you get this number? I explained, well, I was buying this off them. Your supplier details are on the invoice. Thought I'd give you a try. And he was like, we don't deal with anyone but X, Y, and Z. I didn't say anything. And yeah, it was a pretty tense phone call. But yeah, he kind of said, well, what are your plans with this? I'm like, well, the premises, VAT registered, take this seriously, happy to do minimum pricing agreements if we need to sell certain items with minimum prices. And yeah, kind of went from there. He wanted to see my storefront, wanted to see detailed company's house, all that type of stuff. And as soon as he saw my storefront, so I sent him an email with the storefront link. As soon as he saw my storefront, he said, we can sell you that, and I know you're buying that from them, we can sell you that at cheaper. So he completely just, in about 5-10 minutes, just went full circle, and yeah. It was good.
That's awesome. So that goes to show, just allied to your point that you just said, start with RA and OA, because that enabled you to have product on your storefront that he was then happy to advise you on, and it showed that you are knowledgeable with that product, and that really benefits you.
I would say, like, there's such a different, there's a real transition from a B2C business to then a B2B business. So if you're dealing with wholesalers, you need to be, well, you don't strictly need to be a business that's already set up, but if I was Seth Wholesale, I really wouldn't want to deal with anyone that isn't already selling, doesn't already have a trading history, doesn't already have fixed costs, because I'm not going to cough up my supplies that, my supplier lines and my product lines that I've spent years cultivating to someone who's based in his bedroom. So you might still be based in your bedroom or your spare room, but you need to get that kind of perception that the business is more than that, which,
it's annoying that it seems like the bedroom sellers who don't abide by MAP pricing, which is minimum something pricing, and they're ruining it for the rest of us. But I guess the people who are persistent, like yourself, who are up for making 15 phone calls, then you're the one benefiting in the long run. So it just goes to show that, as you said earlier, persistence and hard work pays off, as long as you can then follow through with, you're up for those awkward silences, which I know that I've not done much sales training, but I know that if you're up for those awkward silences, it increases your chances of making a sale, because you're not filling it with waffle. But so just a quick question on supplier lists. Do your VAs go through those manually?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they go through it manually. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've heard that Tactile Arbitrage and other softwares will offer you, wholesale pricing list scanners, but they don't necessarily get everything correct. So then you might be missing out on good deals.
Yeah, there's lots of things you can do. I mean, you can have one member of the team start at the top, the other start at the bottom, and then make sure that they go past each other so that both product is checked twice. You can do things like that. If you just want to get initial order in, you can get initial order in from a couple of lines. But like, the reason to check things twice is that there's things like, if it comes in cases of a certain amount and one of your team aren't familiar with like bundles, so shampoo and conditioner, or kind of beauty bundles, someone with more experience might be able to notice, something you can go off on a tangent with that. And as well, so what we've been really good at is, how did it work? Yeah, it was nappies. So we were selling nappies, and we had a supplier for baby products. They had some nappies from that brand, but they didn't have the one that we wanted. So we contacted them after a few orders, basically said, "Can you get this?" And after a while, they did. So yeah, you can kind of get your wholesaler to do that for you.
Nice. Okay, so I'd love to know what your goals are, you and your team and your business's goals for this year and beyond.
Cool. This year, 7 figures on the UK marketplace this year. That's the main goal. It's more than achievable. And kind of the big kind of vision goal for us is the 2 of my team, they're based in, well, they're not based, but they're originally from an island in the Philippines called Cebu, CEBU, right in the center. And one of our main goals, I want like an office and a day nursery in Cebu within 5 to 7 years. And like for me, I do want to have it is a cash flow business. I take money from it. My staff are all paid well, and we have a good time and we enjoy work. But ultimately, I do want something that will, outlive me and outlive the business potentially. So if I can leave that kind of legacy there, that would be awesome. And what kind of really hit home for me was, like, we had our Christmas meeting, like our Christmas party, I think it was the 12th or 13th December. It's like a Zoom, we all got dressed up and stuff. And then the day after, there was like this crazy hurricane in the Philippines, which basically went through Cebu, and all like the kind of temporary housing and stuff was ruined and all this type of thing. So yeah, I want like founds, I want like a brick building, and I want that put in place because like Faith, she's still not back. Like she had to like move 2 or 3 times so she could work. She has to go and like go to different people's houses because not everyone has internet, and then our kids are like looked after somewhere else because it's still an absolute mess over there. So if I could like have like even like a postage stamp of land that would be like something that stood up to like the weather and all that type of stuff, and have offices with people working there and somewhere for their kids, I think that'd be pretty awesome to do that. That's kind of the main goal.
Very cool. I like it a lot. That's inspirational goals right there. So we've talked about the business a lot. Do you want to explain a little bit about iGen Entrepreneur, the Facebook group, what you're trying to do with that, maybe goals for that as well?
Yeah, so just in a kind of broad sense, we are about basically just what we've been talking about. So we've been talking about Amazon, book selling, wholesale, match betting, private label, and we're of the opinion that technology is there at the moment for people, no matter your background or where you're based, to basically create businesses online and be successful at them. So we basically facilitate stakeholder creation with blueprints for business and personal development. So what that looks like, it's set programs and set blueprints with proven track record of actually working for people to start, scale businesses on Amazon. There's a brave new world of crypto and NFTs, so we're involved in that as well. And we have a wholesale blueprint. So yeah, there's lots of tips and tricks. There's how you establish yourself as a business and how you approach people and how you do all of that. So in terms of iGen Entrepreneur, yeah, it's been really exciting last year. It's been really good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can vouch for you guys putting out really good content. And if any of the stuff we talked about is interesting to the listeners, you should definitely go to the Facebook group, join up to the mailing list. You'll be sent plenty of good stuff. And if you do want to delve into some of the paid stuff, you know, why not take the leap and put your money where your mouth is? So I want to be respectful of your time because we're nearly at an hour and a half. I just want to touch on one more thing that's not related to business, but kind of more in the personal growth thing. You mentioned that you went sober for a few months in 2020 or something like that. And I am doing the sober thing this year so far. I started doing the jar of January and then we're in the 8th of February and I'm still doing it. And I'm loving the productivity gains I'm getting. I'm loving the clarity, you know, I'm loving the lack of hangovers. So I'd love if you could explain, you know, why you made the decision to do sober, like how that's been for you, how impactful it's been. You know, it doesn't need to be, I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to summarize it, like good things just seemed to happen to me whenever I was alcohol free. So the first time I did 3 months either side of a holiday to France in 2019. So 3 months prior to France, basically I found the watches, did all of that stuff, and ended up speaking to someone at a bookstore, got in touch with the manager and not imported, but basically, so she was the manager of Northern Ireland and Scotland for like a charity bookshop chain. Got speaking to her and she basically had more books than she knew what to do with. I imported it to, sent I think 3 pallets of books to the prep center. They prepped it, sent it in, and I enjoyed those sales whilst I was in France. So did that for 3 months after the holiday leading into Q4. And I think, didn't really realize it, but I think with the credit card thing and the watches thing, if I didn't have that like kind of clarity of being alcohol free, I probably would have been more likely to kind of quit or not go as hard at Amazon. So yeah, and then in 2019, Sarah and I went to Amsterdam for a week in December after Q4 had finished and all that type of stuff, and I was back on drink. And yeah, I got drunk a few times, but didn't particularly enjoy it. I kind of was just looking forward to getting home and back to routine. So I said, start of 2020, that I would do 3 months alcohol free, which is the 90-day challenge type thing that you're aware of, and got into kind of middle of March and COVID hit. And COVID was like obviously a game changer for everyone, but for me, there was 2 things that made me kind of just continue on going alcohol free. First thing was, obviously we didn't know how bad COVID was, so I just wanted to stay off the drink so that I was healthier. And then second of all, like I was still working at the time and it just didn't really sit with me when it was the good weather to basically lie about the garden and just drink beer and kind of let COVID happen to you. And I don't like things to happen to me. I like to, for me to be kind of the cause. So it just didn't sit with me, kind of compromise myself. So I went alcohol free from January 2020 up until September 2020. So I did 9 months and then I had a few beers with Eamon and Luke, who I now work with. And I've been alcohol free since September 2020. So that's a year and 4 months, something like that. And yeah, in terms of what it gives me, it just gives me a lot of clarity, a lot more energy, a lot more time, and a lot more kind of good time because I'm not compromised. So for me, I don't want to be preaching whatsoever. I'm actually quite liberal with a lot of things. I couldn't care less if you want to get pissed, stoned, or whatever your kind of vice is. But for me, I've set kind of big targets for the business. I want to be financially free by the time I'm 40. So for me, I really want to get as close to that And if I don't hit it, I don't want the excuse that I was compromised by something within my control. I think that's kind of the big thing for me. That is within my control. So yeah, that's my kind of choice of that.
Oh, that's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think that.
How are you finding it?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with everything you say. And like, you've got a massive goal there of being able to be financially free when you're 40. And I know that I've got a similar goal, that I want to be financially free when I'm 35. So I'm 30 and a half now. So it's quite, it's an ambitious goal. And that I also don't have anything wrong with people drinking. I love a beer. I'll happily admit that. But I know that if I get to 35 and I've been drinking and I haven't reached that financial freedom, I am going to have regret there. And I know that you can be successful and have a drink, but I know you can't be as successful as possible, right? I don't think you're ever going to be able to fulfill your potential if you're drinking. Sorry, I'll say that drinking at the level that I was drinking, you can definitely have a few beers a couple of nights a week. I think that's fine. But if you are taking it to binge drinking levels, then it's totally not. It's not compatible with being a successful businessman or a successful human in general. So I'm loving it so far. If you've got, like, would you be able to provide any advice? I mean, you've really successful. That's like, well done for going so long. And it sounds like you're not tempted at all. Like, would you have advice for? Did you find it like hard starting out? And yeah, would you be able to give it?
I was kind of lucky because whenever I started out, COVID happened. So my advice for people who want to do it now is, first of all, tell people and like be open about it. Just say, I'm not drinking. And it's very hard to do this, but like a good example is, say for example, if someone's trying to quit smoking and someone offers them a cigarette, it's like, you say, if that person says, no, I'm trying to stop, then it's much better and much more certain to say, I don't smoke. Even if it's just for that 3 months or whatever, you want to be alcohol free, just say, I don't drink. You don't need to explain yourself, just be the cause and explain, I don't drink. So I've actually booked stag do in Manchester I'm going on a stag do in Manchester in a few weeks' time. And yeah, it's going to be like super heavy session, and yeah, it'll be challenging, but it's also going to be fun to leave at midnight whenever everyone can't speak, and yeah, have a crack and then leave. So for me, I still have a crack, and yeah, I'm not saying I'm never going to drink again, but for this moment in time, it's cool.
You're enjoying being able to be super smug on that Sunday morning, being able to, check your Amazon sales without being half blind from 10 pints of Guinness.
Yeah. Some go played the Wild Rover for many a year. Yeah, I really enjoyed the beer when I was playing rugby, and up until a couple of years ago, yeah, I'd stand all night and put anyone under the table. So yeah, it is a big part of life. But at the same time, yeah, if you want to change things, start things, you want to say yes to something, you have to say no to something else. So yeah, that's how I've been able to fit kind of all this in.
No, yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I think that's a really good way to kind of start the wind down of this podcast. If you do have to say no to a lot of things to be able to be successful and to get where you want to be, and it's nice that drink is it's such a massive thing. It's not an easy thing to turn off, but it's just such a big catalyst, especially for me, and it must have been for you, to it's nice to know that if someone says to you, all you've got to do is quit one thing, and in a year's time your life is going to be a lot better, then that's cool. I know I'm getting a little bit on the preachy side here. I'll avoid that.
No, yeah. Well, the thing with it is, it's not like going for a run where you have to do something. With this, you basically you just have to stop doing something, which
it's saying no again, isn't it? Yeah, it's just saying no.
Yeah. So yeah, it's helped me, and someone else it might not have the same impact, but yeah, it's been able to help me. So yeah, it's been cool.
Yeah, the thing is, it's different for everyone, right? Everyone, I mean, nearly everyone has got a vice. No one's perfect, whether it's smoking cigarettes, smoking weed,
Netflix,
whether it's food, Netflix. Yeah, exactly. Social media.
Sugar,
People spending 3 hours on TikTok. That is just as bad, if not potentially worse, in situations than alcohol in situations, because it just depends how much time you are wasting to that, right? Because so many people are addicted to the social media. So if you can find something to focus on, like Amazon, then your life should improve. But so on the note of, well, I think that's a really, really great conversation. Like, thank you very much for coming on. And, we've gone for 95 minutes now. So I'll let you get on with your day, finding new suppliers, calling receptionists. And
I'm done. But that one supplier's enough. I don't need any more.
Yeah, I can imagine that was enough of a beatdown and an accomplishment to end all accomplishments. But, where can everyone find you? If you want to plug anything here, be my guest. We'll put links in the show notes. But yeah, let us know, what you want people to visit to benefit them in their Amazon journey. And yeah,
there's quite a bit. So Lloyd Jones on Facebook, iGen Entrepreneur on Facebook as well. There's iGenBusiness.io if you're interested in crypto and NFTs. So there's that. And iGen Amazon on Twitter. And iGen Business on Twitter as well. So yeah, we'll get all those links across, and we'll see you in there. Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Oh no, I suppose this isn't probably going to. There's a really interesting mastermind tonight. Luke's hosting with two of his mentors, but I'm sure this isn't going out until whenever. So yeah, be sure to check that out.
Will there not be a replay of that then?
Yeah, there'll be a replay. So what day is it? Tuesday the 8th, something like that. So it's Tuesday the 8th of February, and Luke is doing a podcast with his two mentors, AJ and Jonathan Heston. They're mentoring me at the moment, and just some of the changes internally they've helped me with have just been fantastic. The workshop, the mastermind tonight, is like a workshop of basically how to set up your day to kind of cut through like mental scars and that type of stuff. So it's free workshop, and there's stuff you can actually implement from it. So be sure to check that out if you're kind of struggling with your daily routine and things like that. And yeah, AJ, like in the top 10 business coaches the last 5 years. So yeah, super, super clever, capable guy. So yeah, check that out.
Wow, yeah, we will definitely put the replay in the notes. I've been getting emails about that, and I'm very tempted to hop on as well, because I love all the mindset stuff, and I know a lot of people just want actionable Amazon advice, but if you are in the market for more mindset stuff, it's not just going to propel your Amazon business, it's going to propel your personal life, hobbies and stuff like that. So yeah, I highly recommend checking that out. I'll have to do the same. And as for that, yeah, thank you very much for coming on and sharing so much about all things Lloyd Jones, and hopefully we can do a round two at some point and see where you got to with your goals and what's changed in your business. I'm sure lots will have. So yeah, thank you again, and we'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you've made it this far, you may as well leave this video a like if you've been watching on YouTube. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for future episode updates. Or if you've been listening on Apple Podcasts, it would be absolutely amazing if you could leave us a review, as that makes a world of difference. Thank you again, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao for now.